Bom dia, boa tarde, boa noite, or whatever the case may be. My name is Marcus, and I am the host of the Black Brazil Today YouTube channel, as well as the blackbraziltoday.com blog, where I analyze Brazil from the perspective of race. So, the origins of the video that I'm putting up today, or I'm recording today, actually started with a comment that I saw a couple of days ago from one of my subscribers, or I don't know if this person is subscribed to the channel, but at least he or she saw a video. Uh, and the question was asked about, Black movies in Brazil. And somebody recommended that he or she watch Black Orpheus or asked had this person ever had heard of that film. And he or she went and saw that film and was impressed, liked it. And then the same person was asking for more. Are there other Black films coming out of Brazil? And so, I dropped a couple of just a few films off the top of my head, but I've been saying for a while that it seems like in the last decade or so that uh, Black Brazilians appearing in the audio-visual genre, films and television seems to have not only grown, but like exploded in the last decade, I would say. You could argue and go back, it goes back to about 2000 or so, but particularly, I'm going to say since 2013, maybe there's just been a lot of film and television coming out that either feature majority Black cast, has Black directors, Black screenwriters, and it's been really impressive to see. I'm always a person that asks, okay, what's going on? No, it's great to see, but again, what's going on? Whenever you see such a drastic change that quickly, you just have to ask the question. And I think it's a fair question. So, to talk more about that today, I've been saying this for years, like this growth of Black Brazilian representation in the media. And it's not something that I'm imagining because there's been a report that's come out, and it's just like a preliminary report. The whole report, I believe, is going to come out next year. But the initial release of this report is saying that more than 80% of Brazilian films with Black directors came out in the last decade. So what does that mean? It means that going all the way back to the 40s and 50s up until now, I've always said for most of the time of the history of Brazilian cinema, you didn't see many Black people behind the cameras. You didn't see them as directors. You saw some films that had a Black protagonist or a few Black people in it. You have very few Brazilian films in the history of Brazilian cinema that you have like majority Black cast. So what's going on and what has been going on for the last 10 years is something that it's pretty amazing. So I want to just share some of the numbers. This report came out. The What I'm going to be reporting on today is based on a report that just came out on one of the prominent Black websites in Brazil called Alma Preta, and the information that they're using has come out from a bigger report. And as I said, the overall report about the percentage of Black directors in Brazilian films is going to come out in sometime in early 2024. But just the little bit of information that's already came out is already enough that I need to talk about it. So let's get directly into this video for today. More than 80% of Brazilian films with Black directors came out in the last decade. This is just a collage of some films that I put together. So as I said, the origins of today's video comes from somebody who commented on the YouTube channel, Black Brazil Today, mentioning Black Orpheus, like, okay, are there more Black Brazilian films? 20 years ago, I would have said no, but nowadays, well, let me say, I won't say no, because if you go back to like the 60s, you will find, like Rio 40 Degrees, you see Ganga Zumba, you see Ukilumbo. There's X amount of films, but I'm just saying, in comparison to what's going on now, it was like very few Black directed films and or films that had a majority Black cast, which is why this is such big news. The second thing I want to point out is that popular Afro-Brazilian film director Joel Zito Araújo said this in an interview. I don't know, maybe I don't remember when he said this, but he says it looks like that Black cinema is in its golden age right now. We know that if you go back to the 60s and 70s, early 70s to mid 70s, there was a period in the United States that we refer to as blaxploitation. And what I remember, and I can't say I remember because I didn't really see blaxploitation in its prime because I came of age in the 70s. Okay. So I would see all of these movies, these blaxploitation films, on VHS when I started doing my own, well, I got my own interest in wanting to see some of these movies. But what I noticed is that like the first few movies that came out of the blaxploitation era were really good movies. But then as the Hollywood saw, okay, black people do want to see films, let's keep just pumping them out. And then they started branching, they started really just developing stereotypical, just stereotypes in all of these black movies. They almost had the same formula. If you start looking at them after the first few, you know, what was it? You see Superfly, you see Shaft, the Mac comes out, and then just all of these blaxploitation movies started coming out, and the quality started getting worse. Just like, okay, they're going to use the same formula in every movie, and it starts to look a little bit ridiculous. The same thing happened, I would argue, in the late '80s. Arguably, I once heard somebody say that the revival of black cinema in the United States, you could argue, started with like Prince's Purple Rain. I don't know how true that is because first, it didn't have a black director. Late '80s, you get Spike Lee coming out. So Spike Lee, to me, was really the revival of black cinema in the United States as black directed, black cast films between, the mid to late '70s up into the late '80s had kind of dried up for a while. And then I saw the same thing happen. Spike Lee opened the door back up. Then you had John Singleton with Boys in the Hood. But then after that, I started seeing a lot of the same thing. Like, okay, now they're creating hood movies. They all got the same type of, characters, the thug element, Dope Dylan. And it left much to the imagination up to a certain point. What they would do with black cinema. Like, okay, it's gonna be a cookie cutter formula that's going on. I mean, it's up for you to be able to decide which films you think fall into that stereotype and which don't. But it just seems like it followed the same formula that happened with blaxploitation. A couple of good films came out, and then let's just push these out regardless of the quality, just to get the black audience in the theater. Okay. Then you have cinema negro, what's called black cinema in Brazil, and this explosion that's going on right now. Black directors, primarily black cast, and I really kind of led into today's video with a video that I did maybe last week, and it was called Unveiling Brazil's Media Revolution Led by Blacks. Okay, this is part of that video right here if you want to go back and check it out. Right now, I just want to get into the topic for today. This is an image from the recently released film Mussum about the Afro-Brazilian skit comedian and samba musician Mussum. Okay, big movie, won a lot of awards. So, question. Do Brazilian films represent the entire population of the country? According to a survey carried out by the National Film Agency, or what they call Ancine, 75.4% of the films released in the country in 2016 were directed by white men, 19.7% were directed by white women, only 2.1% directed by black men. Black women didn't even appear in the data. However, black and brown people make up 55% of the Brazilian population. Okay. The study mapped productions made between 1949 and 1949 and 2022. This new study that just came out. The participation of black directors has stood out since 2010, which is what I'm saying. I said around 2013, but they're going back to 2010 and seeing this incredible increase of black directors in directing Brazilian films. If you go to the Black Brazil Today blog, you'll see a number of articles that I've done that talk about black Brazilian cinema, whether they be short films, long feature, full length feature films, or documentaries. And this is something that you see, director Jefferson Day, I'm understanding that's how you pronounce his name. They were calling him like the Brazilian Spike Lee for a minute there. Documentaries you see here, another film. This was about the revolutionary Carlos Marighella. That's another film that I have to get into. That was a huge controversy behind that film. This is again about revolutionary Carlos Marighella, November 4th, 50 years of his assassination. Ignored by their own country's film industry, the work of Black Brazilian film directors is getting recognized by numerous international film festivals, on and on. Got just a number of articles here talking about Black cinema in Brazil if you want to check them out. So this is a actor, Lázaro Ramos. I always say he's probably the most successful Black Brazilian actor. He's married to Taís Araújo, who is the most successful Afro-Brazilian actress, I would say. And he's recently started directing films as well. So he's behind the camera now. Today's piece is brought to you by, the first, let me see. There was a few. I think the one I'm going to use right now comes from Alma Preta, written by Mariane Barbosa. The first part, I think it was from Casa Vogue. I forget who the author of that particular piece is, but it was just talking about the basic invisibility of Afro-Brazilian directors. So let's get into this piece from Alma Preta. Among the films produced in Brazil in recent years, only 1,086 lasting more than 4 minutes were directed by Black directors. The information comes from the study entitled Cinemateca Negra, which mapped in an unprecedented way the films produced by Black people in the country between 1949 and 2022. This is a still, or just somebody was reviewing the recent film Marchium, meaning Mars One. It was Brazil's representative to compete for an Oscar for Best International Film. It was by a Black director, had a primarily Black cast. The study was carried out by Nicho 54, an institute that supports the careers of Black people in leadership positions, and coordinated by Heitor Augusto, the researcher responsible for conceiving, organizing, and editing the publication. The count takes into account feature films, short films, and medium-length films directed by one or more Black people since the 1940s. Here's a cover from the film Temporada, directed by André Novaes. According to the survey, historically, there has been a low prevalence of film produced by Black people in Brazil. This is because 83% of all productions appeared between the 2010s and the 2020s. Think about that. Of going all the way back to, what did it say, the 1940s, going all the way back to 1949, of the films that's been directed by Black Brazilians, the ones that came out between 2010 and up until now, 83% of the directors, 83% of Black directors in Brazil's history of cinema, going back to 1949, 83% of those productions just came in the last 13 years. 83% of the Black directors of Brazilian films came between 2010 and 2022. So when I say there's been an explosion of Black directors in Brazil, this is the evidence that I'm talking about. Here's a film called Nosso Sonho. This was released this year. It told the story about the funk duo Claudinho and Bochecha, another hit movie in Brazil. By the 1960s, only 6 films have been directed by Black directors. Between 1970 and 1990, the average was 19 productions per decade. That's like a little less than 2 per year. In the year 2000, the number jumped to 116, while in 2010, it rose to 586. So we clearly see the emergence of Black cinema going on in Brazil as we speak. This is still from Opaió, the part 2, which recently came out also. Part 1 came out some years ago, and they just followed it up with part 2. Again, I believe it might have been directed by Lázaro Ramos, this guy right here. I think it might have been. I'm not sure. I have to look into that. The research also analyzed the distribution of film productions, considering the type of productions, whether they're shorts or feature films, over the decades. When we look at feature films directed by Black individuals, the proportion is as follows: 23.8% in the 70s, 55% in the 80s, 11.7% in the 90s, 8.5% in the 2000s, and just over 10% in the 2010s and 2020s. This is the film that Lázaro Ramos says, directed by Lázaro Ramos, Medida Provisória, incredible film. The first data reveals how racism negatively impacts the intellectual production of Black people linked to audiovisual scene in Brazil, and shows the possible positive impact of affirmative action policies, explains research coordinator Heitor Augusto. Another critically acclaimed film, I think from 2017, Café con Canela. For him, the unprecedented nature of the project consists precisely in bringing to light the panorama of the last 80 years in racialized terms. The research coordinator also clarifies that this is only the first stage of the study, which analyzed only director positions without looking at other possible positions, such as production technicians and screenwriters. This is from a comedy called Cogiendo Atrás, came out a few years ago. This is another film by Jefferson Day. The complete publication will be released in 2024 in a printed bilingual version with data on production formats, the gender identity of directors, and the positions held. So just wanted to bring this to you because this just basically reinforces what I've been saying for a while. Like, it's incredible to see this Black representation going on in Brazilian cinema these days. You know, a whole lot of films, not only films, you know, we're talking long feature films and short films, documentaries, but also we've seen a noticeable change on the small screen on television. So just wanted to put that out there. Plenty of stuff to check out. A lot of this stuff is actually available on Netflix if you check it out. You have some Afro-Brazilians are getting deals with Amazon Prime. A lot of stuff comes with subtitles if you're interested. So just start looking for some of this stuff. I presented just a few of the films here. Maybe one day I'll have to put out a whole list of titles that have either majority Black cast or Black directors as they're putting out content in Brazil. So definitely some positive news here. Want to know what you thought about today's video? Drop a comment in the comment section. Consider subscribing to this channel. Like this video, share this video. Click on that notification bell so you know when I put up my next video. If you're supportive of this channel, definitely think about dropping a super thanks or maybe making a small donation to my Cash App. Mr. Marcus72, that's MarQues 72. Every little bit helps and it's always appreciated. And with that said, going to end the video here and request that you all come back and check out the next video that I post.